Hi everyone, Caroline here again. So I made a video earlier in the week and I realized that I really probably overwhelmed you with a lot of stuff about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So I wanted to make a shorter video that kind of gives you the quick and dirty about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and hopefully tells you everything you need to know. So May is Ehlers-Danlos Awareness Month. Right now it's May 2016, so I'm making this very special video to tell you a little bit about it, how you can identify the symptoms of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and hopefully share it with your family and friends. So Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a rare genetic disorder. It's a connective tissue disorder, and it's caused by a defect in collagen. Collagen is one of the most abundant proteins found in the body. It's found in a lot of your tissues, so such as your skin, your muscles, your ligaments, your tendons, your vascular tissue, your heart. All of those things are affected by Ehlers-Danlos because of the defect in collagen throughout your body. So there are different types of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I have the hypermobility type, and I'm not going to talk about all the different types in this video, but just in case you hear me refer to it. So Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, many argue, is kind of on a continuum. There are some people out there who are told that they just have loose joints, that they are double jointed. I hate that phrase. Double jointed doesn't exist. That literally just means you have hypermobile joints. Excuse me. And so they're told they have double joints, they're loose jointed, they have joint hypermobility syndrome. Well, it turns out that's all kind of on a continuum, with Ehlers-Danlos at the far end. And even Ehlers-Danlos itself, you'll meet people who have EDS, as we call it, who have more mild symptoms, who live a pretty normal life. Maybe they're even a dancer or a gymnast. And you have people who have more severe types, who maybe are wheelchair bound, are really disabled, can't work, things like that. So there are many, it's really on quite a continuum. And what makes that challenging is that Ehlers-Danlos for many people is sort of an invisible illness, because I don't look any different than someone else walking down the street. People assume when I use an elevator to go up one floor that I must be lazy, or when I'm walking slowly down the street, they kind of probably look at me like, what's this girl's problem? But basically, it's not worth me taking the stairs at the risk of creating inflammation in my knees or having something dislocate. It's painful for me to maybe walk down the street as fast as other people because all my joints are kind of unstable, and I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit. But the main takeaway there is that some people have invisible illnesses where I'm not in a wheelchair, I'm not I'm not using crutches this week, but it doesn't mean that there isn't something going on there. So it's important to know that, I think, for everyone. So as I kind of already alluded to, Ehlers-Danlos affects your soft tissue and your muscles and ligaments in your body, and it causes your joints to be very lax. Collagen is sort of the glue for your body. So when it's not working properly, things don't stick together how they should, and it creates a lot of laxity in your joints and in your skin. So in terms of skin, it makes our skin stretchy. I have mildly elastic skin, so let's see if I can, so that's sort of like what my skin stretchiness is like. More than normal, but nothing too crazy. If you Google this, you'll see people like pulling out their neck skin really far. Luckily, I don't have that type of Ehlers-Danlos that affects my skin as much, but there are some people who have very severe skin hypermobility. It can also cause bruising, really weird stretch marks, atrophic scarring, which you can check out in another video if I make one on it. All different, poor wound healing, so like surgery for people with Ehlers-Danlos is pretty tricky, or even just a cut or a scrape. Even a mosquito bite on my leg sometimes. I could have a scar from a mosquito bite for like 6 months. It's really silly. And so in terms of the joint hypermobility, that's kind of like the hallmark trait for Ehlers-Danlos. It's how people normally get noticed, especially those who have the hypermobility type, which is what I have. Basically, people with Ehlers-Danlos, specifically the people with the hypermobility type, have chronic joint dislocations and joint subluxations. Joint subluxations are kind of when your joint it comes out of place, but then it puts itself back in place, which is still pretty painful, I promise. So that's the most common problem with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, is those chronic subluxations, dislocations, injuries, and subsequently pain and even arthritis for many people. They can happen in your knees, your shoulders, your hips, your fingers, everything, pretty much any joint, something can blow out. So, but that's, like I said, on a continuum for many people. For me, I mostly just have subluxations. Some people have full-on dislocations where they gotta pop their shoulder back in the middle of, say, a physics exam. Super fun. I actually have a friend who her shoulder kept dislocating during an exam during finals this school year, so I feel for her. So those are the major symptoms with Ehlers-Danlos. There are other issues that can arise that are related, such as low blood pressure, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, orthostatic hypotension. These are all because of the laxity of the blood vessels and other neurological components associated with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So I think the major takeaway here is that people with Ehlers-Danlos are pretty flexible, and that's important, and I'll show you just a little bit of the flexibility. See, this is one of the Ehlers-Danlos tests, diagnostic tests. I can take my thumb and I can easily put it towards my forearm, like with no problem. My pinky, if you look at the top part of the joint especially, it really bends back too far. These are just screening techniques. They don't mean you have Ehlers-Danlos. Some of the other things is, like, my elbows are slightly double jointed. My knees are double jointed, as in they bend back too far. I can touch the floor with my palms flat. Like I said, doesn't mean you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but may mean that there's something going on there, especially if you have other associated issues such as POTS, or you have mitral valve prolapse, or you have Chiari malformation, or you have low blood pressure, or you get migraines. These are things that are red flags. For some people who have the vascular type of Ehlers-Danlos, and I'm not going to talk too much about it, but that's one type of Ehlers-Danlos that unfortunately is fairly common of the types, not as common as the type I have, but nonetheless is common, and it can be life-threatening because it causes your vascular tissue to be extremely fragile. And so this is why Ehlers-Danlos awareness is so important, because there are people who live their whole life thinking, oh, I'm just flexible, or my joints just bend back a little too far. And before you know it, that turns into them feeling loosey-goosey all the time. And then before you know it, that causes all these injuries. And then they can't do the things they love anymore because they're in pain, or things dislocate as they're trying to do the things they love, such as biking or hiking or running. And so this starts to spiral. As you get older, these symptoms get worse. And for the vascular type, these consequences can be life-threatening. Because Ehlers-Danlos affects so many systems of your body, these different issues can be seemingly unconnected, such as dizziness, migraines, like low blood pressure, I'm trying to think what else. Oh, IBS. A lot of people with Ehlers-Danlos have problems emptying their stomach and their digestive system because their intestines are lax. So when you go to the doctor and you're like, hey, I pass out sometimes in the heat, I keep dislocating my kneecap, I have migraines, I passed out in the shower last week, and my stomach hurts, they're gonna think you're a hypochondriac. And that's unfortunately a problem with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. That mixed with insomnia, that's another problem related to Ehlers-Danlos syndrome because of a whole other set of issues that have to do with neurological complications, dysautonomia as it's called. So when you go to the doctor and you're like, oh yeah, I can't sleep, they're gonna think you're crazy. And unfortunately, there are many people who have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome that are told there's nothing wrong with them. You just have loose joints, or you just get migraines. That's all it is. They're migraines, or you know, you just have low blood pressure. And unfortunately, when your doctor tells you you have loose joints, but doesn't let you know that loose joints may mean loose everything, including your vascular tissue, your eyes, your intestines, they're doing a great disservice to their patient, because having loose joints may, not definitely, but may for many people mean having loose other things that don't work properly and cause other really serious and potentially life-threatening consequences for them down the road. That is why it is so important that people learn about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I really hope that this video taught you about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I hope that maybe it'll help you identify it in your friends and family members or even yourself. I hope it didn't scare you. Don't run away from this video thinking just because you have double jointed elbows you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but you might. So I encourage you to look at reliable sources like the Mayo Clinic or the Ehlers-Danlos Society and get some more information, and hopefully you'll be able to help someone or yourself with this. Thanks so much for watching.